Welcome back to Local SEO Tactics. Jesse Dolan here with Bob Brennan, as always. And this week, we're going to be talking about how to get help creating content for your website. In some previous episodes here, we've talked about getting a content production schedule, what kind of content to create, and kind of some things with that, because as we know, the saying, it's kind of cliche now, but content is king.
Yep.
You have to be creating content, relevant content, good content on a regular basis. If you haven't been producing any content for your website, and we'll get into, there's lots of ways to produce content. We'll break some of that down. If you're not doing that, you're kind of going to be expired. I mean, it's going to be irrelevant on Google at some point. Even if you're not now, that day is coming because people are creating more and more content, and Google wants to serve up fresh, relevant content, is the bottom line. So as business owners and small business owners and marketers and whatever hat you're wearing at any given time, this can be a pretty daunting task, right? So we're going to revisit, some of the types of content, why this is important real quick at the beginning here, but then we're going to get into how you can get help creating this content, because really this would be tough to be a one man or one woman show,
right?
Doing this from front to back and still running your business.
Right.
And we got to balance that. So let's kick off real quick here about, let's kind of set the stage about the types of content to produce and, the rate of content and the quality and the quantity of content, just to kind of put that into perspective quick. If you guys want more in-depth information on that, you can see some previous episodes, and I'll drop a few links in the show notes for this episode, referring back to those, just so we don't regurgitate too much of that here and repeat ourselves. But there's definitely a few episodes we have here on these topics that are going to be very relevant. So,
quick question, Jess.
Yeah.
If you, in the SEO formula, if SEO was a meal, right?
Okay.
Would you classify content as the main dish?
Ooh, and the dessert, probably. I mean,
Really?
it's content is what gets found.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you do a Google search, you're getting web pages. That entire search results page, except for the map pack at the top, is web pages. That's all content.
Okay.
It's the thing. Everything we do within SEO to optimize anything, we're optimizing that content. So it literally starts and ends main course and dessert, right?
Yeah.
Well, we skipped appetizer,
Exactly.
which if my wife's listening, we got to get an appetizer. We got to get the main course. And if my kids are with, then we're
Right.
splitting some desserts. But no, it's literally, it's the alpha and the omega of all this. We can't do any optimization or any tweaking or any strategies without that content, right? So yeah, I mean, hopefully that answers your question, not to be too facetious about it, but it's that
No,
important.
I think it's, I'm trying to make a point in that it's the main course. It's what you got to get good at.
Yep.
And, you invite somebody over to dinner, you're not going to just serve them dinner rolls and,
Right.
and gravy. You
Right.
got to focus on the main course, and that's what Google's looking for.
Right. So real quick, let's just reset, like when we say content, what do we mean? So within your website, there's a few different ways you can create content. Maybe you have a blog. That's kind of an easy thing people usually can kind of wrap your head around, is, well, I have a blog and I can make new blog posts and have some regularity there. Yeah, absolutely. You can do that. You can have multiple blogs, if you will, on your website, or multiple areas that people create content into those buckets. You can have sometimes people have like the CEO corner, right? Or news and updates or whatever. That's all content. It's all web pages or web posts that can be published, created, and then found in search engines. Content can also just be your main navigation pages, right? If you have a new product or service that you're adding to your business, or upon review of your website, you see doesn't exist on your website, but it's something that you sell.
Yeah.
That's content. Creating a page about that tune-up service if you're not a repair shop. You know what I mean? Landing pages, going after specific keywords or GMB category phrases. That's content as well, right? So it doesn't have to be organized in some super cool blog or up in your main menu, whatever. The bottom line is, if you're creating a page or a post on your website, that's content. And when we say adding content, we mean adding a new page or adding a new post. There is a little bit of a, maybe muddy water for modifying existing content, right? Like if you have a services page that lists all your services, if you have a new service you want to add to that page, updating that content, it might be okay, kind of in the same area. But explicitly here for the rest of this episode, we're talking about creating new content,
right?
New pages, new posts on new topics that you're not already going after. And that actually, just kind of thinking on the fly, we should put a little disclaimer there. Everything we're going to be talking about here, you're not going to be duplicating this content.
Right.
You can't new content just for the sake of content, and we can probably segue into this topic related here. You can't just duplicate pages and say, oh, now I got 2 pages on tune-ups. Great, I just created new content. No, you duplicated it, and that's actually going to be more negative than positive. So so segueing into the quality of the content. So like we were just talking before we jumped on here, it's got to be content that makes you stick, right? You got to use words that make you stick on the page. And if you're going to sit there and think about, well, maybe I'm going to write an article, or I'm going to write a blog post, or put up a new page on my website, but I don't know for what, so where would we start? Keyword research, right?
Yep.
You got to have the intersection of what people are searching for and the intent, of your page. If we're doing auto repair, just to kind of keep that same theme, I'm going to do some Google keyword research. There's tools out there. We've mentioned them in the past, but Keywords Everywhere is kind of one that I'm using a lot right now. It's a plugin for Chrome that you can use. Another way is if you just do a Google search, scroll down to the bottom of the page, Google's going to give you, I don't know if it's like half a dozen, but like related searches or people also search for type stuff. That's just a nice little way to cheat too for, what kind of phrases or keywords are related to that. But point is if we're an auto repair shop, and if, pool cleaning is a very popular search term, I don't want to create a blog post or a new page about pool cleaning because it has nothing to do with me.
Right.
It's not just about what's popular content. It has to be relevant to your site, relevant to your audience, and some kind of intent of merging the two of what you provide and what customers are looking for. So the example I gave was pretty ridiculous. Obviously, if you're an auto repair shop, you're not going to write about pool cleaning, but just to prove a point, you kind of got to be on topic and don't be ambiguous. I just heard somebody giving an example of a wedding band, right? If you do a Google search for wedding band, you're going to find one of 2 things. Either an actual band, right?
Goes around your finger.
Or, I mean a music band.
Okay,
my first.
Well, we both just got confused.
Right, yeah, exactly. It shows how ambiguous it is. But you're going to get one of 2 things: either a wedding band playing music, or a wedding band like a ring around your finger. The term wedding band is a very popular search term, right? When you create the page, be very specific. So it's like whether it be the Google bot, or Bob or Jesse or whoever reads the page, they know exactly what this is all about. Because two things are important there in the quality of that content. One, Google has to understand what this is for. So when somebody's searching, for pool cleaning, auto repair, or wedding band, they know what your page is, and then they can serve it up to that person because Google, as we all know, and if you didn't know, this is your this is your notice. Google has way more information than we realize on us and what we're searching for and what our actual intent is. Their job right now is to guess what I'm looking for based on what I type in. So if I'm searching for wedding band, they know my recent search history was also, wedding planning, wedding venues, wedding invitations, things like that.
Right.
They're probably going to show me the music related results and not the ring related results, right?
You've already delivered the ring, probably.
Right. Yeah. They just know I'm in the mode of looking to plan my wedding, right?
Right.
So they're probably going to serve me up the wedding band music choices. Now, if Bob has been searching for engagement rings, proposal ideas and things like that, and he searches for wedding band, not a guarantee, but Google's probably going to put him in that box of engagement rings is what they're going to show him, right? So you have to make sure when you produce your content, you're very clear on what it is that you're offering to kind of match that intersection of popular search terms, and what's the intent of that user and the intent of your audience. So again, just to reset, we're sitting down here saying, I got to create content. What should I create content about? Do some keyword research. There's lots of tools. You just go to our website. We actually have on our resources page. We have some tools we list there, but just do a Google search for keyword tools. You're going to find a ton of them, or just do the cheat where you go to the bottom of the page on any given search as well.
Right.
And just start writing down a list or put in an Excel spreadsheet or whatever you want of these terms, and then pick one and then create content for that. Right. So that's how you start. That's how you decide what kind of content you're going to produce. I shouldn't say what kind of content. That's how you get the topic, of your content.
Yep.
Now, like we've talked, the best kind of content really is kind of providing an answer, right? For a question.
Yeah, and I think as business owners, we should know our customers.
Right.
If you don't, start asking your customers, till you can get it dialed in, or if you're just going into business and you're trying to figure it out. But we should know, the pain of our customers. That's why we're in business. And so we have to get ourselves in their head and say, okay, brake repairs, Lakeville or whatever city it might be. But basically that article or that content needs to answer a couple of questions. How much is a typical brake repair? How long does it take? How do I know if my brakes are bad?
Yeah.
What are the problems? What are the possible dangers if my brakes are bad? Just going into all the questions that consumer might be concerned about as it relates to brakes, as it relates to keywords.
Yep.
Again, we're not natural marketers. We didn't get into business to become essentially what we are here, our editor. We're like an editor of a magazine. But in order to really get the feel of whether or not our readers, in this case Google and the people doing the search, will like our content or our information, we have to get inside the head of the consumer, which isn't too hard, and then tie that in with keywords and tie that article in so people will stick to, and it's very readable. So, there's it's about holding them on that article as long as you can, and possibly tying it into other pages within your website. So, the rule of thumb for local SEO, now this is different for if you do national articles or something like that, it's different dynamics. But local, probably 300 to 700 words.
Yeah.
I would say more the better. And try not to write like a professor or college professor. It has to be written very readable. And it has to be, I would say, high school level, because that's about what we read at.
Yep.
TV was designed, or most shows are designed at a 12-year-old intelligence level, and Google's probably a little bit higher than that. But you get the general idea.
Yeah.
Don't write over your head.
Shouldn't be technical. I mean, like I said, 300 to 700 words. I would definitely try to stay to the top end of that as you can.
Yep.
Most people aren't going to read all 700 words, right?
Right.
I mean, we're going to skim it. We're gonna maybe read the first paragraph or a few sentences, look at some headlines. You need all that content on there to satisfy Google and to satisfy the people that actually will read it all. You don't want to have thin content. You want to produce a good, intelligent amount of content. But it isn't something people are going to read everything. So you have to speak. The whole thing should be speaking to that person, right? Yep. Like when you're sitting down there writing it, you're talking to, Bob across the table from you, right? Or Jesse across the table from you. You're not talking to this giant audience. And even more importantly, you're not talking to yourself. You don't want to be using your industry speak, things like that. You're talking to a customer, answering a question for them, and they should be able to scan that page, skim that page, pull out pieces of relevant information, not having to digest, the entire article. Now, for most local service businesses, right? If this is some big, cosmetic surgery type thing, I mean, people, like your money or your life or your health type stuff.
That's a different animal.
Different animal.
Right.
You're going to want to consume that stuff to the nth degree because it's extremely important.
Right.
Well, this is a break, fix, repair service or, ancillary
I tell
product.
You what, my plastic surgeon isn't listening to this show. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
He's making some cash. My
Right.
plastic surgeon.
Yeah. No, I don't have one, so I
See
can't really
all the
relate.
work they did on me? So, within context, it's we're talking about service-based industries much like us.
Yes.
Where, we can dig in and do this stuff and get through it and just make sure it's helpful, right? It has to be helpful.
Answering
that question and get to the answer right away. You don't need to drag it out. And if you can highlight the bullet points on the answer, great. But just make sure it's helpful. Just looking off our notes here. Don't cheat and steal anybody's copyright or information or anything like that. Yep. If you have a hard time doing this, which I have, sometimes you just record yourself talking about how to do brake jobs, and just ramble on for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Then go back, listen to it, and just start kind of making an outline and notes, and then turn it into an article.
Absolutely.
None of us are natural writers. I mean, the words we heard in high school or college was, I need a report. It needs to be 4 pages. We ran the other direction. Basically, the way I break it down is I do an article once every 2 to 3 weeks that's 12 to 1,500 words, and I approach it from 3 to 5 articles that are 300 to 400 words, and I kind of outline it in such a way that it just makes it a lot easier. It goes a lot quicker. Yep. There's some word count tools out there. Yeah.
Well, let's back up there for a quick second before we get to your word count. Like the frequencies you're talking, right? Like how often you were doing it there. And this will probably be true for the word count thing you're going to talk about in a second too. But there is no exact answer, like no magic formula for what you need to do for how many, posts, how many pages, how many articles, whatever, how many pieces of content you need to do every day, week, month. There's some general best practices. If we were to be able to recommend everybody, we'd say throw out, a page every day or two, or our blog post every day or two.
And I would just throw in there too. Depends how big of a city you're in. Okay, if you're in Los Angeles, you're going to have to hammer it.
Yep.
You're in Des Moines, not so much. Maybe an article a week.
And it's going to depend on what your competitors are doing, right?
Right.
Even if you're in Des Moines and you got somebody that tunes into our show and is just practicing all this stuff, hey, you're going to have some pretty good competition on your hand, right?
You bet.
Research them. If they're producing, let's say, 1 new piece of content, post, page, whatever, per week, you're going to have to go north of that. At the very least, match it. You're probably going to have to go north of that to beat them out, right? So whether it be your city or the actual competition, how aggressive they are or not, there's definitely some wiggle room there. So like from 1 to 5 pieces of content per week, right? There's no exact answer, but you're going to be somewhere in that range. And then the same is true kind of back to you here for the amount of words that are going to be in that is going to depend too on those same factors. So
right. And so, I'll kind of transition to this next topic. Do you guys ever, out of the week, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I mean, how many times do you guys either eat out or go get something to
us?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys out there or you
guys? I'll just use
Dolan
myself
family?
as an example. I want to put you on the spot, but we probably once or twice a week, we either get like Subway or we get
same boat. Yeah.
Same boat. Right. Yep. Why? Because we're awfully busy like any other family. So to that degree, as we're talking about content, you don't need to write all this content. In fact, we're going to talk about outsourcing.
Yep.
Or in some cases, insourcing. So if you're a decent sized company and you got 15, 20 employees and you got a young, sharp person that grooves on doing this, you can task them with this, so to speak, or you can outsource it. So,
we should back up to we were saying right before we jumped on here that this is true, and the main crux of this episode is how to get help creating this content, right?
Right.
But first, before you insource it, outsource it, delegate it, you got to get in the trenches yourself.
Perfect.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't, I mean, hey, there's some circumstances, right? But for best practices, our recommendation is write a few pages yourself, just so you understand the process, how long it takes, because you're talking 300 to 700 words, right?
Right.
If we're going to do that as a minimum, I mean, in some cases you want to be putting out 1,500 or even 3,000 word, pieces of content every once in a while. But if you're doing that 300 to 700 words, 1 to 5 days a week, that 300 to 700 words might take a couple hours to write. You know what I mean? So before you just throw it at, this young person or old person or whoever,
right?
Say, hey, give me that 700 word piece of content, in the next 20 minutes. That ain't going to happen. You need to know what it takes to understand that. So
you need to be the writer. I mean, it's weird to look at it this way. If you're a plumber, mechanic, trades, service industry, and let's face it, I got probably C+, average in high school when it came to English and everything else. You're still going to have to dig into this.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to do at least a handful of articles, 3 to 6 yourself to get a feel for what you're doing. But then now, after you've done a few, you become the editor.
Yes.
And that's the role here in outsourcing.
Right.
So it doesn't mean you turn your back and say, good luck with that. You still got your hands in there because you're guiding, directing. You understand the keyword concept and what these articles need to be directed towards and what that output needs to do and how it needs to happen.
Yep.
And we didn't even get into, there's other things with the article that you're going to put things like infographics and pictures and
Oh yeah.
in embeds of videos for that matter.
Well, let me just pause there for a quick second and interject. There's definitely like two halves of this. We're focusing here on the creation, of the actual words, right? Which is a big measuring stick, for the quality of that article in Google's eyes. And that's the hardest part, I would say, as far as like a sit down and create it standpoint to write, an article, a post, a page, 300, 700 or more words. Now, if you have 700 words that you created yourself or, insourced or outsourced or whatever, now you still have to make that into a optimized piece of content for your website, right? There's still certain SEO elements. We've, again, talked about them in previous episodes, headlines, bullet points, and now, like you're saying, embedded images, graphics, videos, YouTube video you want to embed.
Yep.
So there's the creation of the actual word content, but then there's optimizing this for a piece of content on your website to get found in Google. We're not so much talking about that second part, the optimization. We're talking here about the heavy lifting of getting all these words, which is the majority of the content on that page.
Right.
But it doesn't mean it's the end all be all. You still have to do, like you're saying, that final editing. But this is the beauty of it. Like I said, somebody doesn't have to be an SEO master to create these articles. You can job that part out saying, here's this topic, here's the information. Now write me up an essay quick, you know what I mean, on this topic, give it back to me and I'll optimize it on the website here, right? Or give it to the agency that's doing that for us or whatever it is.
Right. So, I mean, there's some things that we've experienced, but what our process is, or one of our processes, is really create an outline based on those keywords.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be 20 to 30 articles written. Some of these articles are going to be 700 words. Some are going to be 300. Some are going to be 1,200. Some might be 3,000, depending on the nature of the keyword and how competitive that keyword is in our specific market. If somebody is at the top of Google on that specific keyword, and it's a 1,000-word article, be best that you written a 1,500 plus word article on that.
Yep.
So that's part of that strategy, and putting that outline together and then assigning it to a couple of different directions or agencies. So again, it's about creating 1 to 5, I think, articles per week, depending on your market. You want to be super aggressive. You got money to burn. Turn up the volume, because you're not going to get penalized for it necessarily.
No.
But you do have to, make it happen. So you'll find these articles, on your competitor's site, and it'll either be a blog or some kind of a post area, like you talked about, a news service. You'll have a jump on your competition if they have a blog deal and they haven't put a blog out there for 3 months, 6 months, whatever the case is.
Yep.
Geez, you should be able to kill it. I mean, you should, in theory, put all that, if you follow some of our strategies, in addition to doing good content, boy, I don't know, I would think within 30 days you should be able to trump them.
Well, and there's the other side of that too, where
if you're great.
if your competitors in your market, let's say the inverse, they are producing content regularly, right? See what they're doing and see what's ranking for different keywords. And you're not going to want to copy their deal. Like you said earlier, you definitely just can't copy paste people's stuff, whether it be for copyright or actually duplicate content. Google will know that this phrase is on both pages. But the type of things that they're writing, if you notice, excuse me, if you notice somebody, like if they're selling copiers and this article is just getting a lot of traction in various keywords, read their article, read your competitor's article, and think to yourself, how can I make that better?
Yeah.
How can I go more in depth? How can I show
bring more value
video? Yeah. Bring more value and create that content to trump their content, in the number of words, in the message you're delivering, in the multimedia that's mixed in, like whatever it is. And again, there's no exact formula here.
Backup singers,
absolutely. Wedding bands. There's no exact formula here. It depends on, again, your geographic area, your competitors, what they're doing, how successful they are. So there's no cut and dry deal here. There's just kind of some bookends, on the extremes here. But definitely, if you're in that case where your competition is crushing it,
right,
you're going to want to really take a hard look at them and research them and just say, how can I take that next step to bring more value? So, should we jump into some of the insource and outsource for people to how to actually get help here?
Yeah, I mean, really, Insource, I'll just jump in an Insource, you can take outsource, but basically Insource is really, finding a champion in this that that you can, do articles, show him your articles, and he or she, let's face it, there's people that are naturally creative in writing, and it's not my gift. And that's really, finding somebody in your organization that would much rather do that than either answer the phone or throw a wrench or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
And you may not have those people, but that's, part of management. You just need to find somebody that this is their natural love language in doing this kind of stuff. And so you work with them in this area, and it's a form of creativity type of deal. You may not have anybody in your organization. So at that point,
well, I'd like to add something on the insourcing real quick. Just to be clear, insourcing, we're talking about people within your own organization, right? Like saying, hey, I need your help creating some content here. I think you might have two kinds of people. One, people that are willing to sit down and actually type the stuff out. But let's say you're auto repair. We use auto repair as an example all the time because everybody's pretty familiar with it, and it's all over the place. Let's say you've got an expert mechanic in the back, and he or she just doesn't want to bang on the keyboard and type up a 700-word article. They just, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
Get somebody who can type good to essentially interview them. Just ask some questions. Say, hey, Dave, or whatever your name is, I'm going to ask you a few questions about auto repair here. Just spew some knowledge at me, and I'm just going to try to type this up and keep up with you. And so people may need to tag team on it, but you've got experts working for you. Tap into, you tap into them, you do your keyword research. Here's the content I need to produce. Hey, everybody, we're going to be doing this. Each of you, once a month, I'm going to rely on you. I get 15 people on my team, whatever, for a piece of content, and here's how we're going to approach it. So sometimes you might need multiple people, on board to kind of get this accomplished, depending on everybody's skill set. But just find out what the barriers are.
Yeah. In the case of breaks, I would ask Jim, say, hey, Jim, what are the top mistakes people make in getting brake jobs done? I mean, what do you see? Where do you see this go wrong? Well, they go wrong because they cut corners on the rotors. They get cheap rotors that warp quickly, or or they choose the wrong pads, and whatever the deal is. Yes, we're a little bit more, but this is, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And again, convey that value. And like you said, brilliant point. Not everybody wants to sit down and write in something. So, but some people communicate better verbally and film it, and then have somebody that can transcribe that into some kind of a blog or whatever the case is.
Right.
And let's face it, younger generation, you can't get them on the phone; they'll text. Yeah. So it's understanding that and enacting that on the Insource. So, if you're ready to jump into outsource, why don't we talk about some of the options there?
Yeah, let's do that. So for outsourcing, obviously means somebody outside your organization doing this, and there's really there's three groups I'd put this in. One is temporary or freelance workers, right? So we had Nate from Free Up on a few episodes back, and we'll link to his company in the show notes here. Yep. Just temporary work, right? If you're like, everybody else out there, you might not want to be doing this every single day, and if you don't have anybody in your organization that can do it continually, and I would say you can always blend these, right? If you have a little bit of insourcing you can do, but you need to do more, it's the outsourcing can come into play. It doesn't have to be all or one, all or none. I'm sorry. So you can use somebody like Free Up. There's Fiverr, TopTail. Those are kind of some of the big three temporary agencies out there to bring quality people on board that this is what they do, right? So when we talk about using these freelancers or temp agencies, it's not just to hire somebody to do this writing for you. Yeah. You're hiring writers, people that can do research. And like you said earlier, Bob, you're going to have this outline. Like, here's the topic or the question I want answered or kind of the theme of it. Here's some bullet points and kind of here's what I'm looking for in its end product. You're going to still need to define that. You can't just call up and say, hey, I need somebody to give me an article about brakes. You'll get one, but it may not hit that intersection of the keywords you're looking to be found for and that intent of the user in your website, right, that we were talking about earlier. So you kind of got to define that when you're working with somebody outside your organization, because they don't know who you are, what you do, or why you're even asking for this article, right? You have to explain that. And that's going to hold true on all these outsourcing examples we're going to be given here. So for each piece of content, you're going to have some kind of outline or something you're going to give them. That's not too daunting, but it's just you have to be in control of what this is. So the point is, though, for these freelance and these temp places, you're hiring people that this is what they're really good at, right? So that's a great resource. That's going to be probably on the highest cost side of what we're talking here, right? Because they're experts, they're professionals. So on the plus side, you get great results, fast results, and just top quality. The potential negative of that, it's going to be more expensive, than some other options. Another resource is the specialized agencies, right? So what do we got here? Like Word Agents, Text Broker are two of the ones we've used. And those are, similar as far as temporary or freelance type work, but unlike FreeUp or TopTal or Fiverr, which is a marketplace for pretty much anything you want done,
right.
These two agencies, and we'll link to all these in the show notes, these two agencies are just people who create and write content, right? And they'll charge you per word. So whether it be from the super low end, maybe, like 2 cents per word up to, 6 or 8 cents per word, you're going to get different quality based on that pay scale too, just like anything else. That's kind of some bookends, wouldn't you say, for pricing, probably in that range. In those places, again, it's kind of plug and play, have your outline. Here's what I need. Here's how many words, what I'm looking for the end result. And boom, you're, sometimes within hours, sometimes within days, depends on what you're looking for. You're going to get that piece of content back. Again, you're playing editor. You're taking that content now and you're putting it on your website and you're massaging it for your optimization and maybe adding images. And some of these services, they can do the whole thing front to back, but you're still going to want to put some eyes on it and be that editor, not just blindly publish it.
Right.
Unless you're working with the same person or agency time and time again, and you get that comfort level. And then that's a little different.
Yeah, some of that can evolve real quick here. They do have teams.
Yes.
So if you have a lot of content that you're producing, you can actually put together teams of authors. And after a while, you do enough of this, and they get to know your style.
Correct.
They understand what your objectives are, and it's semi-auto type of a thing. But you still need to keep your eye on the ball on this. So,
and if you get into that position too, with all this, we should say, whether it's Insource or outsource, you can batch this stuff too. We're talking about releasing 1 to 5 pieces of content per week. Maybe you hire somebody and you just throw a bunch of money at it in 1 month, and you've created all your content for the next quarter or half a year or year even, right?
Right.
And you can just kind of release it, day by day and week by week too. It doesn't have to be like an on-demand type situation. So there's some flexibility there based on your budget or even your time.
And I would throw one quick caveat in there. If I was approaching this, or this is the way we approached it, is we gave a couple of projects to a couple of different organizations.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yep.
And you want to vet it out, and you want to test it out, and you want to make sure, now if they all come back bad, that's kind of on you. You better communicate better. You better be more specific of what you want, how you want it. See if but when you do that, excuse me, and this may seem like a little bit of waste of money, but try to say, okay, I want articles written on breaks, and I want to talk about time, money, different break types, or whatever the case is, but use that same descriptor for all those organizations that you're checking this out. And you're going to see a bit of a difference when they come back.
Yep.
And then you can make your decision on, okay, we're going to go with these guys for a while. But before you start knocking down crazy money, establish a relationship with them, get a couple of good articles published till you're comfortable, and then start moving on to bigger and better things.
So another area for outsourcing is actually virtual assistants. You can get people in different parts of the world to do this for you. Now that's more, permanent or semi-permanent, right? You're either hiring somebody part-time or full-time. It's not a temporary thing necessarily. When you use these freelance or these temporary agencies, you can be getting people from all over the world, within those portals. So that's not so much what we're talking about. We're talking about actually hiring somebody to be part of your team, against part-time or full-time, with the dedicated role of doing this type of stuff. Definitely an option. We'll put some links in the show notes for you on where to go for some of that for people we've used. And on all this too, the agencies we're talking about, I'm sure there's dozens of other ones. If you do a quick Google search, you're going to find them. These ones we're throwing out are people and organizations we've had experience with that, we don't really have a horse in the race, but are, kind of vetted out for you. And then the last area is actually interns, right? Depending on where you're at, if there's some colleges nearby. Look, like you said earlier, I barely passed English, let alone a second language, but there are some people that totally groove on those topics, right? they need experience in the real world, producing articles, producing content, writing, and things like that. Maybe there's a good match there. You can reach out to, the local placement person, whatever the butchering the words here. But within each college, there's going to be somebody that's job is to get jobs and internships for people. Call them up, contact them, and see if there's a fit between your organizations. If there is, see if you can get some help there. It's not just for free labor. You definitely can't use interns for that.
Right.
They have to learn something and be some value. So you're going to be teaching them how the real world works.
Yep.
If you're looking at it just for free labor, they're not going to work with you.
No.
But definitely a resource to tap into that can help you out and get some fresh eyes and fresh typing on some topics there. So really that kind of rounds it out, unless you got something else to add.
Yeah, again, this may seem a lot of, if you're like me, I didn't get stellar grades in high school and college. But I'm a fairly successful business person at this point, and
kind of a big deal.
No, not really. But the point is you're probably in business because your ability to be agile, literally. Yeah. I mean, to adjust quickly. You're quick on your feet, and your ability to just roll with it when there's changes. Yeah. You deal with adversity. You're probably, again, a little more on the ADD end of it, and you're creative and things like that. But this, you need to back off, take a bigger picture of this, and say, okay, I can manage this. I can get these basic skills down. I can back away a little bit. I can and source it to whether it's internally or otherwise, and I can manage it. And I get the big picture, and I can make those changes.
Yep.
So don't get overwhelmed with this process. No. It's just you're learning something new, but it's worth learning. Trust me. It's if you go to college today, a credit's probably $1,200 for a credit, if not closer to $2,000 for one credit in, I don't know, ancient history.
Sure.
Okay, so this is information that you don't have to pay $2,000. It's essentially free. You can go out there and do it. It's going to take your time, which is worth $2,000, but I guarantee you're going to get that back in spades.
Yep.
So, again, I'm just trying to encourage you. Don't get overwhelmed with the details. Just dig in, start doing it, and do what you do best, which is essentially you're a scrambler. You adjust, you do whatever it takes, and then you move on. You make your mistakes and improve it on every level.
Right. Speaking of moving on, slick segue here. We'll get into our 5-star review of the week. This week we got a great review from Rock Mama 1980. I like this mama style already, just from that name. 5 stars, great information. As a small business owner, you have to become an expert on everything. Kind of like we were just talking about to an extent there. I love listening to podcasts help me learn new ways to reach my customers. The information was easy to follow and not intimidating. I love the idea of reaching out to colleges and friends to ask what they would search for when looking for my services. I look forward to hearing more. Thanks, Rock Mama. Definitely like to party with you if you ever coming through the cities here. No, but seriously, the real world nature of your review there, just tells us again, you're in the trenches just like us, and I'm glad it's resonating. This is what we're trying to do, and keep them coming, guys. We'd love to hear the feedback. Helps us know we're on the right course and getting good value here. So until next week, thanks for hanging out, and talk to you then.